Welcome back to another very special edition of the CNC on CFB show. Bowl season is over. The national championship is upon us. As you can see, I'm holding a football here. Colin is not because I believe he's actually been banned from all football-related activities for how bad he picked in our bowl selections.
Yep, kind of a rough go. Connor took care in our head-to-head pick'em last episode. Although I started off some good in keeping with themes of this show. Con, you even laid it out in our regular season, kind of ending with how potentially we're laying out best bets. I got a Duke call, right? A Duke, some underdogs, some underdog picks in that sense. But yeah, my picks as usual, not the best, not the greatest, but still got one pick alive, which touch on a little bit later. But
I don't think any of our listeners are surprised that one of us knows ball and the other doesn't, but
yeah, relatively, yeah. My ball knowledge, I got to go back to the drawing board this offseason. I think that is clear. But I think, yeah, with the head-to-head, the recap Con clearly won. And as we say goodbye to our beloved bowl season, we'll just kind of run through and going down the more important games relatively. Of course, the semis in particular on New Year's, which we talked about it last show. You and I think I'll say I'm in favor now of the New Year's instead of the New Year's Eve and potential chaos and planning and kind of lines in the sand that might draw within family and friends of people who wants to watch Dick Clark on New Year's versus who wants to watch Michael Pat. Yeah. So, but anyway, some good games, some not so good games, some surprises, some
edible mascots.
yeah, that just yeah. Speaking of the Pop Tart, I mean, yeah, it's funny because when you had said I was kind of a mascot, I was like, wait, are you? But then it was just incredible. The whole presentation, some marketing, some raises I think that are due for some folks in certain companies, and just all in all, I mean, yeah, you can't get better. You can't ask for anything better as a sports fan. I mean, it's just unbelievable, unbelievable.
No, to anyone out there who's still on the there are too many bowls train, I submit to you the edible Pop Tart mascot. I mean,
Just incredible. I mean, incredible, absolutely incredible.
it's an
Incredible.
inspiring story. You know, the company line is very clear that it's every Pop Tart's dream to be toasted and eaten. How many people do you get to watch live out their dreams on live TV? Not that many.
No.
But we saw that mascot live out his.
We did. And then some really interesting memes and quite the memes after the fact. But I guess, Con, before we go and just touch on our big, those two semis in particular, the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl, respectively, why not classic? We'll just do, how about you give me a Ballin and a Fallin from this bowl month, if you will.
Yeah, happily. It's probably not going to shock anybody too much unless they didn't catch this game, but my ballin' of bowl season has to be Miller Moss. Coming out playing quarterback for USC. Obviously, he's been sitting behind Caleb Williams, hasn't gotten any of the shine. Hell, he hasn't even been the backup. He's been the third stringer.
Yep.
Amidst a ton of rumors and speculation about who USC's next quarterback was going to be, every name in the transfer portal seemingly connected to them. He goes out on a nationally televised game and says, "Hey, my name's Miller Moss. Don't forget it." Throws 6 touchdowns. Just an incredible game. Looked unbelievable. Looked like they'd be playing in the playoff if he had started all year.
I mean, I think he pretty much secured a starting job for him.
Yeah.
And almost in a way pushed potential suitors away. Potential Will Howard, for example, that looked penciled in, a shoo-in for USC, and all of a sudden he's clearly not doesn't seem like he's going to USC for sure at this moment. But I think in fairness, yeah, to Miller Moss, he was the backup technically, but in perception, you think Caleb Williams, Malachi Nelson, the 5-star number 1 overall recruit.
Yep.
And it's this other guy, Miller Moss, who you just don't even, I guess a random guy you don't really think too highly of. You just know he's a USC quarterback and really looked, yeah, unbelievable. Unbelievable, making incredible throws. Really, yeah, USC looking as good as they have all year. And even the defense, although I'm not the biggest Louisville offense guy necessarily, but even the defense making some plays. But should be a very interesting year for USC next year in that 12-team format. But can't fault you at all. Miller Moss, he was destined to be one of the out of the two Ballins. One of us had to pick him, but I guess in rounding out the Ballins for me, I'm just gonna go a little bit skipping around down, but preview. I mean, I can't pick a Ballin without saying Michael Penix. We'll get into that later, but the guy, CJ Stroud-esque performance, but he actually went farther and got the win and the ticket punched. But
He was unbelievable. I mean, especially on the deep balls in that game. He was dropping them in the bucket like, better than he could have ran down the field and handed it to a guy.
As cliche as overused as that is on broadcast, it really looks just like it's on a pillow. Like it's incredible. And obviously, you can say that guys around him, but you got to make the throws, and he made the throws and then some. But I think then Con quickly going through some Fallins here. I think we've gone a similar route here with team specific. I think yours, and I think what you all are probably assuming based on the result of the game here, we're going to.
Yeah, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. I'm not looking for an off the path Fallin. The most obvious Fallin it should be and is Florida State. I mean, it was flat out embarrassing. I mean, legitimately tough to watch. And as a Miami fan, I love to watch Florida State lose. At a certain point, even I was feeling bad. That thing was ugly. So yeah, and what a fall from an undefeated season to that in the bowl game. I know there were a ton of opt-outs and everything.
Which, in fairness to Florida State and their fans, and I already know, look, I'm not in their good graces necessarily on this based on this show, but you don't have your top weapons. Obviously, we've known about Travis being out, and obviously the impact that had on the CFP decision-making process and everything, but it's just, you see takes out there, people are saying, oh, Florida, opt-outs, all opt-outs, this and that, the other, and then, oh, well, look what happened with the team that got in over us, but the team and their quarterback, look, just any way you slice it, just tough look for Florida State, man.
Yeah.
You would assume you can't lose by, I'm sorry, but 60-point loss, it's just, we'll see. Look, DJU talking about potential on the up and up for that program, but just a very I don't care who's out there. You almost think, man, you could have thrown. I feel like you and I toting the rock right now. We could have maybe, gotten 5 yards on a run. Maybe a fake punt, catching them slip in there, but just I won't talk down too much. I think it's upset.
Because, I mean, it's, you talk about, all right, maybe bring in DJU, known winner. All he does is win, right? He's got a couple national titles under his belt. But, no, I mean, you talk about looking up for next season. I know you just went undefeated in the regular season and won the ACC championship game, but if you're a Florida State fan, how are you getting excited for next season after watching that? I mean, it's unbelievable, and I mean, they're going to need somebody at quarterback because it sure wasn't going to be that third stringer who they were playing.
No Tate Rodemaker because he was out, and Brock Glenn.
Yeah, Brock Glenn did not get the job done. And it was particularly brutal for me because I had Florida State getting 59.5 points. It was a great line. I couldn't believe I got such a great line, and then
line you were looking to just make $1.
Yep.
Base betting a heavy sum, just trying to make $1.
Plus 59.5. Horrible beat.
Crazy beats. Yeah, that's unbelievable. But speaking, I guess, rounding out our Fallins here, and really, for me, I think this goes kind of hand in hand with how you did one of my, I guess, show darlings, quote unquote, did him dirty. Ohio State, man, that's a tough look with putting up pretty much nothing on offense. And I saw some interesting little theory, some comments. Quinn Ewers and him transferring when he did, and just everything, you could talk about, what's the word here? butterfly effects or just things that set into motion how things transpire after certain, just maybe one blip in time, decisions and actions, and how they affect the program. But just Ohio State, man, and coupled with, we've obviously talked about the whole Michigan saga and who maybe got the wheel going there, and then now you're hearing who potentially snuck into as a bad actor onto software, a third party that has a library, if you will, of all teams in a way, and their footage and practice and all that. And you hear about the rumors there now with Ryan Day and how they basically misuse of footage, external footage, and not their own property by any means. And just bad week for the more than a week for the Ohio State program.
Yeah.
And we'll see where they might end up. You know, maybe they get Will Howard, and I think they gotta hope.
If they don't, they're in some trouble.
That's
yeah. I think the biggest winner that came out of this game, other than everyone at Missouri, of course, was Kyle McCord. Who,
yeah.
I mean, all season long, there's been talks about how this elite Ohio State offense being held back by a game manager quarterback.
It's not C.J. Stroud, but
take away that game manager, and then what happens? You don't score a point, basically.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like, you be careful what you wish for. You don't know what you got or what you had till it's gone. Truly, and I know Devin Brown had an early injury too, but even up to that point, and with in the similar vein, a underclassman 5-star highly recruited player and Kindholz, just as a whole. And I know no Marvin Harrison, but still had Emeka Egbuka, Trevion Henderson. Just a bad look for the Ohio State program. And with senior rival, take care of business as we transition here.
And I think just one more note on it. A bad look for Ohio State's defensive line and linebackers because they couldn't stop the run all day. I mean, that's all Missouri had to do. Give it to Cody Schrader, or Brady Cook ran a lot.
Really, when it mattered most in the fourth, in the fourth quarter, because it was a 3-0 game until through 3 quarters. It was just, but in fairness to that front seven of Ohio State, man, you just gotta wish for offense to do anything. Just give us anything.
That's true. You only let up 14 points. It can't really be on the defense.
Yep, but some Ballin Fallins, classic fashion there to round out bowl season, but we're not quite done bowl season, especially when talking about the Sugar Bowl, Rose Bowl, just classic settings. Some argue I'm curious to hear your take on this. A lot of Rose Bowl should be the national championship final. Where do you stand on that?
But personally, I liked, and I know you can't do it anymore with the way that the college football playoff is expanding, but I always enjoyed the traditional conference alignments of the bowls. So I liked, the Rose Bowl being between a Pac-12 and a Big Ten team every year for years and years and years. Obviously, you can't do it anymore, so once you're going to break that, and obviously they just had Alabama playing it, but yeah, once you're going to break up that tradition, then I do kind of think you can do it wherever you want. The only thing is, one of the most, famous things about the Rose Bowl and most beloved things about the Rose Bowl is the sun setting over the mountains at halftime or in the second half of the game. And so you want to keep that timing. They would never play a national championship in the mid-afternoon.
That's true. That's true as well. Even though I guess... you buy another week or so. The sun, you're not going to get exponentially more sunlight, daylight there. But that's a good point. They would never.
But I do like having a semifinal there, and you can play the semifinal in the afternoon.
Yeah, and that's fair enough.
That works.
Leads off, kicks off the day. Really, I think and especially with maybe with how we just saw the semis and how good of a game, both games, how good they were. It's almost like maybe just don't disrupt how good it was in this last, of course, 4-team format. But enough of the, I guess, ambiance talk, because ultimately we're talking 4 teams on 2 separate fields. And Con, I'll let you kick off speaking of the Rose Bowl. You've been a Michigan guy all along on the show, and man, they eked out eked it out in the end in OT. How were you go run through? Just describe your emotions, thoughts throughout that game, and if you were really confident they were going to be able to pull it out in the end.
Yeah, the third quarter's where it got hairy for me. The first half was a traditional slugfest,
Mm-hmm.
back and forth. Two good defenses,
Mm-hmm.
two offenses that weren't bad in the first half, but obviously Michigan goes into the half with a slight lead, 13-10. But then in the third quarter, I thought we were starting to see Alabama come out of the locker room punching, and I was scared.
Uh-huh.
But Michigan's D line played amazing all day. They
Mm-hmm.
were big in the trenches. They were stopping the run, and most importantly, they were getting to Jalen Milroe, and they weren't letting him scramble to the level that he usually does.
Mm-hmm.
He got a few nice runs off, but not many. Not like we've seen him
No.
at his peak.
No.
And he was sacked a bunch, and he was under
Yep.
pressure a bunch. So really, when that was the counter punch that I was looking for in that third quarter, and I said, "All right, this is gonna be a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's anybody's game up until the end," and it was. I mean, it went to overtime.
Yep. Yep. Just really good game. Really good way to kick off the semifinals. Like you said, I think Michigan, their calling cards. Look, in the end, Blake Corum, a big run, a big play
Hmm.
early into that drive, and you really maybe thought, based on how the game up to that point, you would. I mean, at least I envisioned really tough. Maybe it was going to be a tough go for both those offenses and it was ultimately for one
Hmm.
team. But that condensed red zone area, I thought it was really going to be really
Yeah.
tough. But Michigan, big statement. Obviously, their identity running the ball with Corum there, and then like you said, man, their defensive line, constant pressure. I mean, it's really, really, really kind of bona fide, tried and true recipes for success on how
Yeah.
to win games against anybody. And just Michigan, it's quite a formidable team, and I'm just can't wait for the Natty. And I guess any closing thoughts, Con, on the Rose Bowl in particular.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to get your take on, like, these two teams were so closely matched up.
Yes.
It was a great game the whole way. Even when it was ugly
Mm-hmm.
in the middle, it did get kind of ugly for both teams. Special teams mistakes for Michigan and some turnovers and
Yeah,
other.
some inability to field punts.
Yeah. So just some incomplete, both teams, incomplete passes to open receivers. And
Hmm.
so there was some ugliness. But even when it was ugly, it was tight and it was close and it was well fought.
Yep,
What do you
really
think
on
was the
edge.
difference? What do you think
I
gave Michigan that edge?
I think it's as cliche as overused as it is. In the games are won and lost in the trenches, and you
Mhm.
got the offensive line, even without the first one of the a first round offensive lineman in Zinter. He
Mhm.
goes down leading up to this, but enough depth on the O line to create some holes. Obviously, Blake Corum in his own right.
Mhm.
It's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, in terms of a ground game and a ground attack, if you will, and explosive plays. But did well enough against a very stout, obviously Bama D line, as we always know they are. And then, yeah, when they got to make plays, you got underclassmen, interior guys,
Mhm.
Mason Smith, I believe, quote, or I know he's an Orange County guy, what the defensive MVP of the game, just constant pressure. And it's how you disrupt a quarterback by getting pressure, obviously, with the defensive line. And look, Milroe, not, he's really got better as the season went on.
Mhm.
Showed he could throw a good deep ball when he could or needed to
Mhm.
or had to, but really didn't in this game. And kudos to Michigan, obviously the secondary, even some guys there. But really, when you needed it most, a very very dual threat type guy,
Mhm.
goal to go, third and or fourth and goal from the
Mhm.
2.5. You're thinking, okay, QB draw, man, it's going to be tough to stop, but the guys step up and make plays, and when it really matters. So I got to go with talk about the trenches. You win the trenches in that game, and in most games, that's just the
Yeah.
difference maker.
Yeah, for me, a big thing, and a big thing between Michigan's team last year which we watched lose in a close game in this exact spot, and this season was, I think JJ didn't make the big mistake. Last year they lost because he threw 2 pick sixes. That was the reason. Michigan was the better team.
Sure.
And he didn't make the big mistake. He came out, he tried to throw a pick on the first
Thought it
play.
was maybe on, yeah. Thought it might have been a big, yeah.
But no, that was. But then he settled into the game, and he didn't do anything absolutely unbelievable, but he didn't have to. He managed the game well, and
Didn't
a lot of people will
lose.
say game manager, meaning it in a negative way. I say it in a positive way.
You don't lose the game. Don't you put your
Exactly.
team in position to win the game.
And for me, the difference came down to he had the experience, had been there before, had been in other big games before.
Yep.
And he was now mature enough to just do that, just not make the big mistake. Whereas Milrow, on the other hand, certainly didn't play poorly.
No.
But, yeah, push came to shove. That was supposed to be an RPO on the last play. And the snap's low, and he made a rookie thing, a thing that probably worked for him his whole high school career and everything, being, I'm the biggest, fastest, strongest dude here, and play breaks down, I'm just going to go for it, and I'm going to get it. And he went forward, and he ran right into the middle of the heart of the defense, and that was the end of the game.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think that was probably just an experience play. A more experienced quarterback goes, okay, it was a low snap, but it's not a fumbled snap. We can still run the play. And
And maybe a little bit, and it's because it's tough, and I'm not trying to maybe it's a fine line between being fair or unfair to Milrow and maybe the decision making there. But yeah, to your point, yeah, it was an art. They said RPO, and you could see they had the running back could have very more than likely made it if you opted to throw for the running back.
the
made
pass
a
was
guy
there.
miss.
People were saying just follow your guard because the guard was pulling there. And if you go back and look at the video,
that was
following the guard would still not have resulted in a touchdown. He would have had to make the pass play there. But
And I think ultimately, look, this goes back to I'll give in isolation on that play. I'm going to give the Michigan secondary and in particular the linebacker who basically has got to read. He made it difficult enough in that split second, in that moment, to basically make the incorrect decision. He was kind of half in, halfway out, and just caused issues in that sense. And that's just kudos to, obviously, we know Michigan defense, the coaching there. It's been an NFL feeder, and it'll be just really interesting. We'll see.
And a very gutsy call by the Michigan defense because they had safeties crashing on that play.
Yeah.
There was nobody. No, I don't want to say over the top because it's only from the 3-yard line or whatever. But, but there was no deep help if they did skirt a tight end out or something. So it was a gutsy call, worked, and I mean that's how close the game was. Now on to the next one.
On to the next one with the Sugar Bowl down in New Orleans. Washington, Texas. As a guy that had Washington, felt really good for a while. And oh my God, what could go wrong did go wrong on the final drive there. But not jumping too far ahead. From the jump, Washington looking really good. A big passing play early on, and Michael Penix, man, that just really kind of foreshadowed him being on fire, after that early connection to Polk, almost a touchdown. Shout out to Polk there, making a guy miss, got down to like the 2-yard line there, but really foreshadowed, just on fire. Michael Penix, best game of the year, easily, obviously, in the moment. My Ballin, so to speak, just rose to the occasion against not a slouch of a defense by any means. No. Texas has some guys. Michael Penix in that offense just ultimately better and executed more, obviously, in the end. And, God, I hate to do this, talking about maybe sour spots, and especially end of game running versus kneeling, and really interesting at the end there. It's just incredible. I mean, in a nutshell, though, I think where I'll leave it, Con, and toss it to you, we talked about this with, okay, oh my God, everything looked signed, sealed, delivered. You punt it down there. You'll pin them basically inside, the 10, make it so that they got to go 90-plus yards, and they have basically one shot. It would have been a hook and ladder. We're talking like 7-8 seconds. Turns into The clock stops. You got just under a minute, give or take. You get a foul on the kick catch interference by the long snapper, moves you up to the 30, give or take. You got 70 yards in 45, 50 odd seconds, and you got the clock stops in college.
Yep.
Just, you get into, well, ultimately it was inside the red zone with 15 seconds, give or take. Could have been 3 plays, but then you survive a kind of questionable call where it was a bit of a dump off by Texas. And then ultimately, look, when it matters most, it was 1-on-1 against A.D. Mitchell, who made an incredible, show just previously on the scoring drive. Went up, floated in midair, came down, Moss got a touchdown. Back against the wall, you find a way to make a play, get when it matters most, a pass breakup. And it just describes, watch time and time again. Look, and they talk about it on the broadcast for so long. Every 10, 11 straight games, less than, single digit wins. It's just they're always seemingly close, but they just find ways to win.
Yeah, I mean it feels like a trend for whatever reason with coaches mismanaging the clock at the end of games. I feel like we're seeing it more this season and late into this season than I can remember in years past, and it's it's the difference between wins and losses, and in a game of this magnitude, you can't take any risks and you can't make any mistakes like that. And that's, you can understand an 18-year-old, freshman coming and making a mistake, even a 22-year-old senior. Mm-hmm. But a coach who, you've been doing this for your entire life by the time you're a head coach in college football. And, timing management and clock management, it'll always be a head scratcher for me.
Yeah. And in some fairness to Kalen DeBoer there, and people talk about, oh, well, you get the first down, it's truly over. But I guess, look, it's definitely a learning and coaching experience. Yeah. When the alternative, when you can just ensure you have, it's going to be one play, and they got to go 90 yards, I think, and in that, the stakes are on the line there.
Yeah.
And even just to your point, look, just electing to run. Look, we talked worst case scenario in theory of Dylan Johnson, your own player goes down, it's the injury timeout, clock stops.
Yep.
Could have fumbled it by opting to run a play.
Yes, we watched Miami lose a game against Georgia Tech this season for doing exactly that. All they had to do, kneel on the ball and go home. Mm-hmm. And it was a fumble that flipped a game that was a major story in college football this year. It was obviously everyone knew that, but I'm also not letting Sark off the hook. If you're Texas, like you said, you get 3 shots down in the red zone. Mm-hmm. They all have to be into the end zone because you can't risk catching one in inbounds and going down and wasting
trying to run a wheel, a quick out with a running back. Yeah, you're getting too cute.
Do not throw it into the flat in that situation. All 3 shots have to be to the end zone. Mm-hmm. I don't even want an underneath route so that if Quinn Ewers is in trouble, he can't try to check down to someone.
Take it out. Yeah, don't even make it. No, totally.
But we're taken away from a great game because that was part of the greatness of the game was all the drama at the end.
Yeah.
But all game long, it was 2 really good offenses playing against 2 very good defenses too, and the offense won, which. Great offense, beats great defense. Some people will tell you that cliche. Others disagree with it. But in this game, it seemed to be the way.
I think when you have as talented of skill players in it, especially from a passing attack standpoint, absolutely.
And not to take anything away from both quarterbacks, who are both great, but they've gotten a lot of shine already. There were 4 excellent receivers in this game.
Yeah, I would venture you could say 5, 3 and 2 if you got the 3, the Washington trio, and then the duo really. But even a Jordan Whittington, we'll see. Maybe he has potential future pro career, but because he's he's the guy that stepped up for Texas, throwing it up when you need it, when you really need it. Credit to him there where it's due. But just an incredible game and fun to watch just to see in terms of more offense than the really kind of grinded out absolute battle that we saw in the Rose Bowl precursor.
Yeah, 2 different play styles, 2 close games. I think both fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely, in their own right. Mm-hmm. Plenty to be just appreciative of as college football fans. But
and how about this we talked so much about how the 14 playoff was always a bad idea because you have 5 power conferences for 4 spots. Someone was always going to get screwed, and they got away with it for the entire time until this year when they had to leave out an undefeated Florida State.
Yep.
The other funny thing is the 14 playoff, people talk about the expansion of the playoffs. The, naysayers will say that, there's just going to be too many blowouts in the first round if you have 12 teams. There aren't 12 great teams ever in college football. Well, we've seen blowouts in the semifinals every year of the 14 playoffs.
The whole idea of average margin double-digit games, differentials.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen 50-point blowouts in the playoff. And this year, again, in their very last year, we don't get that. We get 2
very fitting,
very, very good games, very close games. One coming right down to the end, the other going into overtime. So
both in a way, in the end, for relative to both.
Yeah,
technically, just didn't quite need the extra period for one of them, but yeah, just an incredible slate, Con. I think maybe with that, we'll go full screen here for you all to see our beautiful faces again. But I guess just just closing thoughts, maybe on anything bowl season related as a whole. Anything we didn't say with respect to the 2 semi games, or maybe even New Year's 6 in general, or your greatest the greatest inner workings of your mind. If you want to just go on a bit of a monologue.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say a somber but sweet farewell to bowl season. Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened.
Oh, yeah.
It was, as it always is, a beautiful, beautiful thing with some horrible, horrible games, which is what makes it so special.
Yep.
I mean, you get 2 terrible 6-6 teams, one from the MAC and one from Conference USA, and they play in the rain, and it's ugly, and it's beautiful, and it's my favorite. And you get weird bowl sponsors, and you get edible mascots and mayo bats, and everything else that makes it such a beautiful time of year. So special to have it all intertwined with the holiday season, and we get to kiss it goodbye today. It is no more for this season. It will be back next year. It will be just as beautiful as ever, and I think we're starting to get some people on board. I've seen a lot less of the too many bowl games takes this year. I think people are finally coming around on the fact that every single college football game is beautiful in its own way. 100%. And sure, sometimes you have to watch Iowa try to play offense, but that's got its own charm to it.
And finally go to their 5th-string quarterback who shows something after the first 85% of the game. Absolutely nothing. No reason to keep a certain quarterback in the game, but no offense to Deacon Hill there, not anti-Deacon Hill guy, but yeah, kind of think you eloquently put it out there in describing what this means, significance of it, and even just lastly leaving it at, with all the chaos or the criticism about maybe the external, all the noise outside of what's being played on the field, in portal, coaches getting overhauled, players opting out, in whatever, all the external noise. It's just beautiful that we're able to look back and we're able to, in this holiday season, obviously coinciding, just enjoying sitting back, relaxing, watching these games on the field. It just takes you away from the madness of 20 half your roster potentially leaving, whatever, this, that, the other. You can just enjoy it. And we still got one game, speaking of enjoying, one for the granddaddy, not quite of them all. We got the Natty coming up a little less than a week, which we will, of course, be back with a preview on that, talking Michigan versus Washington. I mean, it's really shaping up to be quite an interesting game. Really.
I can't wait to break it down with you, bud.
Absolutely. But with that, who are we?
I'm a certified ball knower, and he is not.
Can't argue right now.